Hello and welcome to the Fiber Tales podcast. My name is Helga and I'm coming to you from Odense, Denmark. And I hope you enjoyed the little intro this week. I went visiting my parents on the farm, and it was just a lovely week with snow, and the whole family was there because it was my mom's birthday, so I really enjoyed. So it was a little longer introduction than what I normally do, but I just thought it all had to go in there, and you could see the sheep and the horse and the family having fun in the snow. Let me just do the normal introduction first. You can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as Fiber Tales, and I have a Ravelry group now, Fiber Tales Podcast, where there's slowly a few more people joining, and I'm sure it's gonna be a really lovely place. So go say hello, and there will be some more things that I will mention later on in the podcast. I just want to say a huge thank you to Sweet Sparrow Yarn or Sweet Sparrow Knits, depending on the podcast or the yarn company. She's just started podcasting again after having a little break, and she's just the sweetest person. Whenever I watch it, I just feel like giving her a huge hug because there's something really sweet about her, and she makes really beautiful yarn, and it's a pity that it would be really expensive for me to get the yarn. So I always feel like that when I watch when I discover or watch yarn dyers from the US or from Canada. It's generally too expensive for me to order from there, so I tend not to do it. But yeah, she gave me a little shout out in her latest episode, and so I got some new subscribers, and welcome to all the new subscribers. It's so lovely to have more people here, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. Yes. Normally I would like to start out talking about what I'm wearing, but I'm not wearing anything handmade today. But I'm wearing a dress from the company called Olive Clothing. Here you can see the little tag, and I would like to mention this because they're based in the UK, and they make sustainable and conscious clothing. It's maybe a little more expensive than the clothing you would normally get from, let's say, the cheaper brands, but I like to know that the whole process of making this cloth has thoughts behind it, and that they have politics surrounding how the workers are treated and how they deal with the fabrics and stuff. Oh, I forgot a button. So it's a really lovely dress, and has these little flowers that are just absolutely beautiful. I don't know if you can see them. They're embroidered onto the fabric. So I just had to get this one. And it makes me feel like spring is coming when I can put flowers in the window and wear things a little more spring appropriate. Although we had a really nice wintry week last week, it just changed completely on Sunday. So after filming the last bits, the weather just changed, and now we have really kind of warm and not that wintry weather. I didn't finish any projects this week. I've been working on some different things, but they're all works in progress. But I did discover while I was visiting my parents that this pair of socks that I made, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe longer, I don't remember. I'm sorry, they've been worn quite a lot, and they're not on sock bloggers or looking particularly nice, but these are the skip socks. I will put it on the screen. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and they have this interesting little pattern where you kind of make a little slip, and they're really lovely socks. It's the first time I bought the hand-dyed sock yarn, and again right now the name is not I made these so long time ago, but she's an indie dyer from the UK, so I will put the name somewhere and you can go check. This is what I have left after making the first 2 pairs of socks. So why am I talking about these socks as a finished object? It's because I was noticing when I was visiting my parents that they were starting to form a hole on the toe. Actually, it was pretty much there. So what I did is I did some duplicate stitch on top of where the hole was forming, just to prevent it from becoming a proper hole. And it was pretty much gonna happen with one more wear, I think. And normally I wouldn't do a duplicate stitch, I would do like weaving over the hole, but since the hole, there were still stitches there, they were just really, really thin, I thought I could get away with doing a duplicate stitch, so I did that here. And the other toe was a little bit better, but I did put in a few stitches here. And I think once I start wearing it, the stitches will kind of flatten out a little bit. And yeah, so I just thought to mention these socks because that's something I was working on. It didn't take long, it was just like 10 minutes of sewing, but sometimes you have to take care of your hand-knit socks so they last a bit longer. But I'm really happy about this pattern, is really nice, and they make really nice stretchy socks. So yeah, and I can recommend the yarn, although it's a Blueface Leicester, I think, with some nylon. But I will say that the hole came much quicker than what I would have expected. So I guess I'm not used to these finer yarns. I always had socks knit from the supermarket sock yarn, which my grandma was the one always knitting for me, and those socks, they last a bit longer than this kind. So I think I won't knit that many socks from this kind of yarn in the future, because I mainly wear thick woolen socks in the winter and my boots are pretty rough on the socks. So, and I don't think I wore these socks that much, so it's a pity that they already have a hole, and they're quite fluffy. You can see the yarn it's peeling a bit all over. So all in all, it's probably a great yarn, but I would prefer something a bit more sturdy and rustic. So that's my only finished object for this week. So for works in progress, I have a little more to show you, because I picked up an old whip that I haven't showed you yet because I kind of left it for a while, because I discovered a mistake. And once I discover a mistake, and if it's far down in the knitting, I just get really annoyed, and then sometimes I put the whip to the side, and it has been on ice for a little bit. It's in my it's in this project bag that I made some time ago, and the whip is the Daffodil Cardigan by Helga Isager, and it's a really nice cardigan in a fingering weight yarn. And so let me show you. I'm working on the back piece, and it has this beautiful, yeah, it's showing up really well, this beautiful arrowed pattern that goes, which is just eyelets and eyelets forming these V's, and it has a 2x2 ribbing on the bottom and some reverse stockinette in the, or is it garter? Oh, it's garter stitch in the beginning, and then the 2x2 rib, and you can see where the stitch marker is. And I think I was up here when I realized that I had done some mistake down here, so the stitches were like, the V was not even anymore, Oh, these things are sometimes really hard to find words for in English, I'm sorry. But the V was not even anymore, so I had to rip back. I mean, I could have just said I don't mind, but then the whole pattern would have shifted a bit to the side, and I really like the clean look of these. So I went all the way from around here, I ripped back, I picked up, and then I knit all this. I knit this in a few days, I think 3-4 days since I picked this up again, because I needed something. It's a really mindless knit once you have the stitches in place. The worst part about this was putting them in the bottom and make sure that they were all in the right place, because I get distracted, and then but once they're there, you can easily see when you make a mistake. Or I thought you could easily see when you make a mistake, but I really didn't notice it until I kept. It was like there were too many stitches on one side, and then I realized there was a problem. And actually I found another, I made another mistake. It's an easy knit, but I keep making mistakes. So I found another mistake once I got up here again. I realized that, well, down, well, you can probably tell, I think it's here. Oh no. Where is it? Yeah, it's actually over here, but yeah, you can't really tell. So here I did an SSK, I think it's an SSK on this side, which I did one too many. So you do yarn over, SSK, yarn over, SSK, but then I did one in the beginning as well, because you mirror the pattern. So you have to remember once you get to the other side that you're doing them after, not before. Yeah, so that was annoying, but it's really not, you can't see, and I just decided I don't mind. So it's gonna be the back. I already started the sleeve shaping, so where the sleeve will go in here, and I have some more knitting to do before, yeah, a bit more before you have to do the shaping for the shoulders. So yeah, I'm knitting it in this yarn. Let me see, yeah, maybe you can see it a little bit. It's a really funny yarn, because here you have the label. It's Black Hill Eleve wool, and it's from Garnudsalg, which I mentioned before. It's a Danish website that has a lot of yarn and really good deals sometimes, and this was pretty cheap. They normally have a section with a sale, and you can find really good deals in yarn. And this yarn, I like the idea behind it, because it's recycled yarn, so it's all kind of yarn that would not have been used in this when they're spinning, so they just made this yarn from that. And the color is called aubergine, and I think it's a really nice aubergine color. You can see that purple tinted, but once you get closer, it's actually black with red, which it's not my favorite kind of color, but when you get a little further away, it looks purple. So I really like the purple aubergine color. I'm not the biggest fan of the red, but you have to get really close to see it, so I guess it doesn't. I decided to keep on going. And it's really soft. It's a really nice soft fingering. It's woolly and nice to work with. And I'm knitting it on a size 3.5 millimeters, and these are the Knit Pro. I think they're called Knit Pro, or maybe that's in the they have different names if you're in Europe or in US, but yeah, nothing bad to say about them. I will say though, the pattern is one of those typical Danish patterns, so I have it printed out here, and you have to really stay focused when you're knitting from this pattern, because there's a lot of information. Like for example, I don't want to show you the pattern, but there's a whole part here, and then in the end it says you're knitting 23 rows, and then in the end it says at the same time you have to do the increasing and so on, the decreasing. No, it was increasing. I always mess those two words up. So the increasing. So after reading all of this, you realize you have had to do increases as you were going, and I just wish it would have said something in the beginning about remember to increase or be aware that there are increases. So this is the way sometimes the Danish traditional way of writing patterns can be a little bit annoying, because you get a lot of info and you kind of have to remember to read the whole thing through, and then it's up to you to remember that while you're doing all of this, you have to do something else. And I'm trying really hard when I'm writing patterns now to find some kind of middle ground between not holding your hands all the way, but also, for example, not just say increase 54 stitches and then leave it up to the person to figure out how to do that. Because sometimes you just want to follow a pattern and you don't want to sit and do math, and yeah, so I'm trying, and it's a balance, and I probably haven't found my style of doing it yet, but that's one of the things I'm trying really hard to work on when I'm doing my patterns. So, but I can show you the little picture without giving too much away. So here you have the picture. One thing I decided to do, which you probably can't see, is on the sleeves. It also has little V-shaped eyelet pattern, and I didn't do that. I actually did one sleeve because I decided to start on a sleeve. So I did one full sleeve, which I did some time ago. Now it's a bit wrinkly. So that's the sleeve, and it has a pretty funny shaping of the, I mean, it's you will see this kind of arm hole shaping in sewing a lot where it's not the same on both sides, so it's asymmetrical, and I think it's gonna be really nice. So the sleeve is not that interesting, it's just plain stockinette, but it's knit flat. The whole thing is knit flat in pieces, and then you will seam it up, which I don't mind. I actually kind of love mattress stitching, which is at least when it's not too complicated. I like putting it and just seeing how the two pieces, they just, when you do it really nicely, you can't see the seam anymore, and I think that's so satisfying when you close it up. So yeah, that's the Daffodil Cardigan by Helga, and I think this part is so beautiful. I can't wait to wear it, and I think it will be a really wearable and useful cardigan to have in the spring and in the autumn, because you need something, and also in the summer, because let's face it, the Danish summer is pretty terrible, but you need something lightweight you can just throw on top. And normally I've been buying cardigans like this from H&M and places like that, but I really want to have some more lightweight fingering cardigans that I made myself. And yeah, it's a fun knit once you get over the whole understanding the pattern. I have more info on my Ravelry page, so I'm generally being pretty good at keeping up with my Ravelry page, so you can find most info about what I'm talking about there. Yeah. The other work in progress I have is the shawl I've been showing you that I'm knitting out of Gregoria fibers, and it's a design that I'm making, but I didn't want to show you the last part because that's where the whole design is showing up, but I realized you actually cannot really see anything because it's rolling over, so I can show you a bit without giving too much away. So I put it on the extra cable, as I mentioned last time. So I have a connector, I have one long cable, and then I have a connector here, and then I have another cable. And it's a huge V-shaped, crescent-shaped shawl, and it has to be blocked, right? So until I block it, it will look really lumpy. It's all in garter stitch until the last bit that I'm not showing. So I have to block it, and it will grow quite a bit, I expect. Yeah, and I'm knitting it on the Lykke needles, as I talked about before many times, that lost the paint, but they actually, I received the new set of needles that they sent me as a substitute for these ones that are defect, or I don't know how you would say, but the paint was not strong enough, and I can just show you because they're really nice. So I put them back into my Lykke needle case, and these are the ones, and I just love, they're a little bit lighter than the other ones I had, which is, I can't get enough of how the wood is different. This is the kind of things I love so much. I like little subtle changes in color, and they're so pretty, and they came without any problems or anything. So if you buy the Lykke needles and you experience any problems, I would highly recommend that you just contact the customer service, because they're great and they were so sweet, and the contact was really quick, so that wasn't a problem. Yeah, so that's actually all I've been knitting on. I've been knitting on the shawl, and then I picked up the daffodil again, because it's nice to change between projects. I think I get a little tired from knitting on the two same projects all the time. I haven't knit on the Birkin sweater that I've been showing you for a couple of times. I'm playing with my hair, I'm sorry. I haven't knit on my Birkin sweater that I showed you last time, because and the two last times, simply because I'm not really feeling it. I'm pretty sure I have to rip back because I'm not happy with the color work. I still haven't tried to steam it. I always have this feeling, and it was the same thing that happened with the daffodil, is once I realized that there's probably something that I'm not happy about, and I know that it will mean ripping back or frogging, or yeah, I just tend to not do it and leave it. And then at one point I just realized I want to fix this. So it's not like it will just lay there forever, but it can be some time. I made the Anker's sweater, but the cardigan version. It was the sweater pattern, but then I just decided to make it like a cardigan, and I actually knit the whole body, and the button band was looking really wonky and not nice, and I just left it for I don't know how long, and then I finally decided to rip it all back, but it took me some time, and sometimes it's a process for me. If I realize that I'm not happy about it, but I don't, it's easier to rip back once some time has passed. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the sweater I've shown you before, that it's one of my own designs. I finally have the name that I'm sure I like, and it's Skovmærker, which is a name I've been thinking about for a long time, and actually one of my inspirations behind this, when I saw the yarn, and it just all came together, because Skovmærker, I will put it in English, I forgot to look it up, but Skovmærker is a little plant that you find in the forest here in the spring and over summer, and it just has the most amazing smell when you take it in, and you can collect like a little bouquet and you can hang it to dry, and it just every time it gets a little humid, the smell will just be much stronger. And yeah, you can sometimes in the market, the farmers market that's nearby, they sell little how you call it, like a little flower crown made of these flowers, and they're just green leaves, fresh green leaves, and then sometimes white flowers. And I just thought some of the elements in the pattern, which I think I can show you now. I mean, I wanted to, I think you can see it there. Yeah, this braid with these little leaves, it just reminds me so much of this plant, Skovmærker. So I decided to use the Danish word because that's the word that has more feeling for me. And what I wanted to say about the pattern is I just called for testers, and actually I think I will close it today because I got a lot of people writing me. Sorry, I just got a message on the screen and then I get really confused. I had a lot of people writing me that they would like to test, so I just have to look through who I'm gonna pick, because I'm doing the testing both in Danish and in English, and it's actually something I've been doing with all my patterns. I don't think it's the way people normally do it. Normally they probably do one and then the other, but I like to get it over with and then I'm done with the whole testing. So I need testers for size extra small to extra large, and also Danish and English, and I actually don't need then testers for all the sizes in Danish and testers for all the sizes in English. I can do some sizes in Danish, some in English. The important thing is that both patterns are understandable and the language is correct, and that that I will have all sizes tested. So I am I just called for testers, and I'm really excited to get started and see what yarn people pick, and it's always a fun part. And so I just wanted to mention that and explain the name that I chose. And I have some other news, which is on my Ravelry group. There was a person who asked me if I would do a cal for my Retour sweater, which I don't think I will do, because I don't think that many people are knitting it yet, and I understand because we're at the end of winter and it's a really wintry sweater, and yeah, it's I don't think there will be enough people for cal as it is right now. I hope more people will buy the pattern and knit it, but at the moment it's not enough. But what I want to do is I want to make a cal for Danish yarn and Danish, I want to say recipes all the time, that's why I get stuck. It's because in Danish we call a pattern a recipe, so that just gets confusing in my head. So I want to do a cal that's for Danish yarn and Danish patterns. So you can either do use Danish yarn for something, or a Danish or knit a Danish pattern. Like for example the Daffodil Cardigan is by Helga Isager, and this cal is the knit dance cal. So I decided to play with the words a bit. Dansk is Danish, so let's just to use the Danish word. And this cal will be it will end in May, so I thought it would be better if it ends before the summer, because generally people are not that much into knitting once the summer rolls around. I will allow whips, but they have to be less, up to 25% done, so anything more than 25% will not be allowed. So actually the daffodil that I just showed, it's too done. I have done too much. I think I'm almost halfway there now, so it wouldn't be. I think it has to be like a pretty new whip if you want to enter. What more? Yes, I haven't decided on the size or how much yarn you have to use. So generally I just think you should knit something like a garment. It can be accessories, it can be socks, but it would be really nice if it's something a little bigger. So I think that's all the information about the cal, and now on to the exciting part, which is the prices. Because I showed you these two skeins some time ago, and I think they would just fit perfect. Oh, I think so. With the whole idea of using Danish yarn. This is the Isager spinny that I bought at the yarn shop where I went with my friends some time ago. That was closing down, and it's just a beautiful. I'm holding it upside down. It's just a beautiful light pink color on a grey base, so it has this interesting heathered effect. Yeah, it's a beautiful skein. It's 600 meters, so it's quite a lot per 100 grams, and I would say it's a lace weight, so yeah. This one, it would be nice for shawl or something. It's rustic, but it's soft at the same time. And I also have this one, which is Sandefjällen, and it's also dyed on a gray sheep base, and it's on this mustard color on gray, and I think it's really pretty. It was not my idea that these two should go together, but they're kind of nice together. But it's just to get to know some Danish yarn, and I thought I would also throw in one of my patterns, so the winner could pick between one or the other, because I think, yeah, the green one will be, Skovmærker will be ready in March. So yeah, and I think there might be some more prizes and maybe some other information that I will mention next week, because I talked to some other Danish knitters about what we can figure out. So I will announce that next week. Just for now, I wanted to open up the thread, and you can start thinking about what you would like to knit, and then there will be more info on the next episode. Yes. Okay, so that was it for the first part, the normal podcast content. I wanted to talk a little bit more about how it was like growing up on a farm, because it's something I got a lot of comments about, that it was nice to see, and people would like to hear about more about how it was like to grow up with sheep. And since I went to the farm, my parents' farm, this weekend, it was my mom's birthday, and it was a nice excuse to record a little bit from the farm and show what it looks like. So my parents' farm is a hobby farm, which means they have been working always, and they only had the farm as as a hobby, which sounds a bit silly to me, because it was actually a real farm. On the farm there isn't enough land to really live from it. My grandparents, who lived there before, they lived from the farm, but once my parents took over, their dream was not to be farmers in the way that they would live from the land, so they were working, and then they had the lands, they had some crops, and they had mainly for the animals, but also for us, that we could have make flour for bread and so on. The whole farm was changed to organic farming when they took over, and they had, from the beginning, they had sheep, and they also tried having cows and stuff, but it was mainly sheep, and they decided on the Gotland sheep because they both have a really nice meat that and also the fleece, so it is a sheep that can be used for both. So the flock used to be bigger, and then as time went on and my parents got older, it got smaller. I think now there are 6 mother sheep and 1 ram, and the ram will be changed every, I don't know, 3-4 years, and the mother sheep, they will generally be the same group of sheep, but once in a while one of the younger sheep will take over from one of the older sheep, and so on. And the Gotland sheep, they always have twins. They generally have twins, and then sometimes they will have only 1, and sometimes they will have 3. And when they have 3, it's actually normally a problem, because they don't like, something in them will make them not want to take care of the last one, probably to be sure that the other 2 will survive. So generally they will, when there are 3 little ones born, it's pretty common that one of them will be pushed away by the mom, and it's the most terrible thing to watch. It's really heartbreaking, because she will just keep pushing this little lamb that wants to come to her and feed, and she will be quite rough with it, like they are with any other lamb that's not their own. They won't allow them to come and suckle. So when that happens, we in my family, we generally take care of the lamb that has the problem. When I was a child, the way we would do it was mainly to bottle feed the lamb, and it would be my job most of the time, and I loved it. I thought it was the most amazing thing. So I would you would heat up a bottle of like formula, and then to the right temperature, put the milk on the hand and check, and all this as a child, it's a really big responsibility to have. So I would heat up the milk and go feed them. And for example, during school, when I was in school, and we had those lambs, I would bike home in the lunch break, which was half an hour, so I could just bike home from the small village nearby and heat up the bottle, feed the lamb, and bike back. But then I wouldn't have my own lunch because I wouldn't have time for it. But I did that. I didn't question this way. I thought it was, yeah, it's a really good way for children to experience responsibilities, I think. And it wasn't, I didn't feel it like a chore I had to do or something annoying. I loved it. And those lambs would become really friendly, like a pet. And I had one in particular that I remember really well. I named her Susie, and I will insert a picture because I have a picture with her, and I just loved her so much. And the thing that happens then with these lambs is they grow up, and once they grow up, they will still be friendly, but generally less and less, depending on how much contact you had with them. And then as the fall comes, then they're born in spring, and as the fall comes, they are fully adult, and we eat them. And I've been asked so many times, I cannot even mention how many times, when I tell this story, and I'm like, and in the end we eat them, and people think it's terrible that I can eat this lamb that was my friend, but that's not how we generally watch it. For me, I know that this is the way, I grew up with this way, and for me that's the way things are. If you want to eat meat, you should be realistic about what it is, and I'm okay with it. My mom, for example, is a vegetarian. She doesn't eat meat, but she's also okay with it. So I guess this is something you learn when you grow up on a farm. I'm not saying if you grow up on a farm you cannot become a vegan or anything, but generally if you grow up on a farm, you have this you're taught this way, this is the way things are, and you have a really practical view on things, I guess. Yeah, so I would grow up with helping out with the animals, and one of the things I loved to do was just when my dad had to shear the sheep, that would be done twice a year, I would just sit there in the barn with him and watch, and I love to watch how the fleece comes off when you're shearing. It's like a big blanket that rolls off, and I just remember it as something really quiet, and it was a really quiet childhood, but I didn't have many friends living nearby because we were in the middle of nowhere, but it was really lovely, and I just learned to tell myself stories and entertain myself in a different way. And then that fleece, as I showed in the beginning, you can see the skeins of yarn. That fleece is then later made into yarn at a local mill that I talked about before. It's called Jelholt Uldspinderi, which is in the next village. So we will take the fleece there, and they spin it up, and I also, it was a part of the whole process, so I saw how the fleece would be cut and then come back as skeins, and I would help, as I told last time, I would help my mom wind up the skeins and watch her knit different things for us. And it has always been very natural to me, the whole idea of knitting and working with yarn. My grandmother would spin it also it was a little before. I don't remember her spinning, but she had the spinning wheel in the house. But for me that was something really old-fashioned, and I actually think it's very nice when I discovered that people are still spinning. I would like to try it sometimes, although I prefer knitting in the way that most crafts I try. I always find that I would rather spend the time knitting. So yeah, that was a little bit more info on the whole growing up on a farm. I would really like to have sheep someday. They're really fun animals, and it happened also a couple of times that we would have a handicapped sheep for some reason, that I think mainly if the birth is a bit too slow, they don't get enough oxygen or something else is wrong, and those kind of sheep of course would not survive in nature. But we had 2 of them in the as I remember. We had 2 different ones, and they are so sweet, and we just keep them, and generally they don't live that long. They maybe live until 1 or 2 years, but they've always been so fun having around, because then they get, of course they normally have to be bottle fed as well, and they just become like the little fun one of the flock. And I think it's very nice the way my parents have the farm. They're not living from it, so there's a little more you don't have to be economical about things, and you can easily have a sheep that is not really gonna bring any income back to you. And also because sheep are generally a cheap animal, they get some they will be fed in the morning and in the afternoon in the winter, but in the summer they just go around outside and eat the grass. Actually, it's one thing I included in the video in the beginning. You can see on the field where they've been grassing, how they make a pattern in the snow. So they actually walking around in a funny pattern and eating. They don't just walk all over. Yeah, I think they're fascinating. They're a little bit dumb. Sheep are a little bit dumb, but also very sweet. And yeah, and there's something about the sound of them when they call each other and they go home in the evening. They will start calling out, and then they all walk back to the barn. I think it's very lovely. So I hope someday. Right now I'm living in an apartment in Odense, which is the 3rd biggest city in Denmark. And although I like city life as well, I think there are many great things about living in a city. I'm at the point in my life now where I really want to move back to the countryside. When I was a teenager, I really wanted to move away from the countryside, because when that's the only thing you know, the city seems so interesting. But now that I'm older, I feel like it's time to move back, and I would like my daughter to have the upbringing I had. Yeah, I hope we are really looking for a house right now, and I hope we can manage before summer comes along, but I'm not quite sure how it's gonna work out. Yeah, I think that's all. I talked and talked and talked, as I generally end up doing in these episodes. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions about growing up on a farm, about sheep, about Gotland sheep, I don't know, feel free to ask them. I opened a thread on Ravelry where you can ask questions, and generally just comment. But if you have any questions about anything, you can ask there. You can ask here in the comment section below, and I will see you in a week's time. Have a lovely week. Bye.